Fox shutters Tucker Carlson. They shut him down. So he goes and does his own thing. They're furious about it. They try to sideline James O'Keefe. He resists. He then launches his own organization. They cannot stop him. The only thing they can do is make some bogus charges against him and stop him through legal force. I mean, the reality is they're so desperate, they're losing. That's why they're trying these tactics. Mm-hmm. But I'm telling you, I see them going after James O'Keefe because of this.
I'm going to introduce just a slight note of skepticism on this, which is it is possible that James O'Keefe violated, New York state labor laws, right?
Sure, a lot of things are possible, but I really don't believe that.
Sure. Okay, but my point is that precisely because they've become so politicized, these kinds of investigations, that no one can, even if he did it, you're like, oh, it must be because of his speech.
They're suspect.
And that's the problem, because I care about labor rights and I want labor laws upheld. But in a case like this, and given the backdrop of how the sort of official left has behaved, you can't help but think this is a kind of political persecution, even if it may be a legitimate case. And I know you're saying it probably isn't, but I'm just saying it could be.
Anybody, if you offered someone the opportunity to place a bet, is this a political prosecution or legitimate? Anybody willing to take the legitimate bet, they're welcome to play at my poker games.
I think that you're on something with your broader point. And I've mentioned this before. The fact that there's so many people now that don't trust the government. And look, I've been a libertarian kind of dude for at least almost 15 years or so. And so I'm real quick to be like, government no, and I want to cut the government, blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to the average, what you'd call normie, I really think COVID and the vaccine has really, really opened up a massive, massive new group of people that just don't trust the government. They just don't believe what they're telling, what the government says and stuff. And I'm not sure what that means for the country. Like, low trust societies are violent societies. Low trust societies are societies that have weaker economies. There's more just more friction. You need more lawyers in low trust societies. You need more courts. Everything is harder in a low trust society. And the more that we do things that separate people from each other and make people look at class differences and race differences and stop focusing on the fact that, we have liberal principles that unify us as a country. We don't need to worry about your skin color. We don't need to worry about your religion. All you have to do is understand liberal principles and accept the fact that people should be allowed to decide how their own lives should be structured. And it's easy for us to get along. But if we can't allow people to live their lives the way that they see fit, I don't know how you fix the problem of a low trust society.
Well, but so here to talk about a little bit about the book. Precisely, there are possibilities for private coercion in the marketplace, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
There is a kind of free market theory that imagines that we're still in the late 18th century, and you just have independent farmers and mechanics and artisans who can trade at arm's length. That is not what the American kind of economy looks like. Most industries are super concentrated. There's 2 or 3 predominant sellers, and everyone else, especially if you're a worker, you're at the mercy of. It's like the wage is no longer the perfect crystallization of supply and demand. It's an index of relative bargaining power, and so those are issues that government can help with. And I believe should. So, for example, the fact that in this country, half of fast food workers have to rely on public welfare to make ends meet, that is not good. We have what's called a low-wage, high-welfare society. Why is that bad? By the way, it's not when we call it high welfare, it's not like the welfare benefits are actually especially generous. In some ways, they're quite miserly. But it just means that as a share of income for kind of the lower third of the country, the share of the income they need to make ends meet, welfare makes up a big part of that, and wages are not sufficient. So what we're doing is, as taxpayers, we're subsidizing, low wages.
Communism.
And at the same time, workers in that position are not only subject to the whims of the boss, but they're also subject to the whims of the welfare administrator, who gets more and more powerful because he controls the fate of more and more people. So those are problems where we need to work together democratically to try to solve. And if people are constantly thinking that government is out to get them to try to like impose irrational mask mandates and so forth, it becomes harder.